Easter is time for basket. It's time for bunny. And frankly, bonnet, okay? And let's not forget egg. And you know what? I would love to be bunny. I would be so good with bunny because I've told America COVID would be over by Easter. I just didn't say which one, okay? I didn't say which one it was going to be.
Let's not forget egg. Facts. The former president, clearly a punchline that keeps working for SNL. That was new this weekend. But his power and influence in the wider political culture is waning. I'm not just saying that. I'm going to show you some examples right now. But there are also details about how, despite the fact that he has less juice in all of America, he still has a grip over Republican primaries. The New York Times detailing how Trump sits around Mar-a-Lago and has kind of a session of political wannabes and other people who just think maybe their long shot campaigns will go somewhere if they hang out with Trump. There are also hangers-on and has-beens like convicted felon Roger Stone, who did get a pardon for his crime, convicted from Donald Trump. Sharing a video, Trump is basically at what appears to be Mar-a-Lago, from what we can tell, who then trashes Ron DeSantis. And that's how that relationship works. Trump says, oh, I didn't see you. He knows the cameras are on. He pals around for a second, and Stone gets in a dig at DeSantis. But the issue here is that so many people in the Republican right wing are still trying to get something from Donald Trump. Republican candidates come through, some basically begging for an endorsement. The Times article I mentioned details that it's an effort for Trump to be a modern-day party boss, and he does have over $100 million, which doubles the coffers of the RNC. And voices from within the party note that that is precisely because he doesn't work like the RNC, representing the whole party or an appealing vision for America, but may actually damage it. Take Congressman Upton, who was one of those 10 House Republicans that did vote to impeach Trump over the insurrection. In his retirement remarks, he is making sure people know he has a warning for the party he's long served.
Lauren Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Paul Gosar, is that a different element than you've ever seen before?
I don't think we've had as many folks in that sort of wing of the party elected as we have before, but I think they're very popular back at home.
Yeah.
I mean,
what does that tell you about,
what
does that tell you about the Republican Party?
Troubled waters, I guess you could say.
You see the pivot, he first refers to something that is true. Some of these people are popular at home, but when pressed, he admits this is troubled waters, in his view, for his Republican Party, and that's a conservative. So the MAGA bubble can burst when it has contact with the outside world. And that goes to the point I told you. You know, when we cover politics on The Beat, we don't just kind of ping-pong around or do he said, he said. We try to give you the facts of the story just like any other, although admittedly there's a lot of lies and crap that circulates in political news, especially involving the former president. So let me just show you some facts. You decide whether you like them or not, but there are signs that Donald Trump today is not the Donald Trump of even just a few years ago. So when he launched his big blog, well, it went nowhere and he had to shut it down because the numbers and readership was so low as to embarrass him within a month. He also tried starting his own entire social media site, which is something that someone with as many followers and as much fame as him would seem to have an advantage on, except that also failed. And in the first year after Biden was inaugurated, we see that the wider interest in what Donald Trump is doing and saying has been plummeting. The data shows there is just not the interest. The days when Donald Trump could just drive news cycles have definitely faded, which is a sign of less interest in what he has to say, and maybe different algorithms as social media companies try to consider whether they are just reacting to the worst possible impulses rather than a new or interesting idea. And then there's the problem he created for himself. If your entire brand is always trying to do a kind of norm-shattering shock value, if you do that for 4 or 5 years straight, then attacking and shattering those norms becomes the norm, and it's less interesting. Let me tell you something. We know governing requires a lot more than slogans or tweets, and this former president is not even allowed to tweet anymore. That privilege was taken away from him. But I will tell you the point here is one that would certainly wound the ex-blogger and ex-tweeter in Florida. because a lot of the data we have shows his shtick has become boring. Now, what does everyone else do with that? Well, on the Democratic side, Senator Warren has a piece that many are discussing today that ran in the New York Times where she says, look, there's 200 days left, and she's telling her party it is time to hit the accomplishments and have a clearer governing leadership and message on taking on corporate power. So where do we go from here? And is Donald Trump the most boring person in the world right now? Well, Che Komanduri, a veteran of several Democratic presidential campaigns and friend of the beat, and David Plouffe, the architect of Obama's 2 big wins, are here when we're back in 60 seconds. We are back with former Obama campaign manager David Plouffe and longtime Democratic veteran and friend of the beat on Che Days, Che Komanduri. Welcome to both of you.
Good to be here, Ari.
Great to have you. David, I'm sure you read the Times piece with some interest and the moderate annoyance. Real party bosses, whatever the party, care about the party, right? There are people who actually care about the Republican Party, its policies, what it wants to do. We know, and I think the audience knows, Donald Trump doesn't care about that. He doesn't care about policy. He eliminated the platform. So it's party boss in quotes, but it's a portrait of his strain for relevance against the metrics I just ran through, that he has become, in some measurable ways, David, boring. What is the challenge and opportunity there?
Well, I wholeheartedly agree with you. I mean, I've said for some time, I may live to eat these words, I doubt he ends up running. Because I think at the end of the day, you can see the trend lines. And some of the focus groups that have been reported on with Republicans, even people like them say it's time for something new because they think that's the best route to win. And what's fascinating about the pilgrimage to Mar-a-Lago is I believe it's quite likely the Republicans that are most successful this November in true swing competitive, Senate, governor, and House races are those that show a little distance from Trump. Even if it's just it's time to move on, Joe Biden was elected. But that's not where the party is still. So I think the risk will be what Trump is doing is deeply damaging this party. You remember back in 10 and 12, the Republicans left 3, 4, 5 Senate races on the cutting room floor because they nominated people that could not win general elections. And I think that some of the people Trump's laying hands on may lose winnable races. So that's what's fascinating. I think you see a dichotomy. But I think the folks that are going to end up doing the best with the general election, because I actually think there's going to be swing voters, Ari, that will want to reward Republicans that show a little bit of separation from Trump. You saw it in Virginia. I mean, Youngkin tried to dance a very delicate dance, but I think the signal that most voters in Virginia got, if not nationally, was he was not Trump. He was kind of, Mitt Romney 2.0.
Yeah, and Che, I mentioned this. We can throw it back up on the screen. I mentioned in the setup that there are signs that there's less interest. I think we all know that in 2015 or 2016, a Donald Trump website or news center or blog would have felt larger and bigger and certainly would have been boosted by Twitter and other things. This is just clicks. And you see here, I'm going to leave this up while you talk, Che. This is a crash for Donald Trump and interest in what he's saying and doing.
It is, but let me take a little bit of a contrary view to this. I totally agree. The metrics are very real. Trump's influence has waned. It is declining. That is all very true. The problem is that he is still by far the most powerful person in the Republican Party by a mile. He's the most important and influential member of that party. He is the person who is still most likely to be the GOP nominee in 2024. He's still that by a long mile. If you think about it historically, what Donald Trump has achieved...
Che, are you allowed to disagree with the former Obama campaign manager? I guess so.
Now I can, yes. I couldn't do that before 2008, but I can do it now.
Go ahead.
In addition to that, he also is somebody who's done something really remarkable historically. What he has done is, as an ex-president, he has positioned himself really as the leader and putative nominee of the party. Nobody was talking about Bush Sr. running again and being the nominee in 96. Nobody was talking about Jimmy Carter running again and being the nominee in 84. Donald Trump, what he's done as an ex-president who has lost an election is really remarkable. I mean, people bring up Grover Cleveland. Grover Cleveland won the popular vote. Donald Trump is a total loser on every level. He should have walked out of here disgraced and humiliated, and that is not what has occurred.
David?
Well, I think, again, he has enormous pull with, I still think it's dwindling, but still a large part of the Republican base that drives primaries. And that's why you see the pilgrimages. But we're going to get some sense. I don't think it's a completely accurate sense. But, I think, is J.D. Vance going to win the primary in Ohio? We'll see. We're going to have a record of people that he supported and how they did in the primary. Number one, the most important question then will be, how do those people do if they get through the primary in the fall? And did the Trumpiest candidates outperform normal Republicans in swing districts or not? And my strong sense is they will not. But yeah, his pull is enormous. It is all about him. It's not about the party. The reason I say I don't think he's going to run, and I'm way out on a limb here, is we saw, listen, our democracy is just about ended right now because of his brittle ego. The notion that he would run for president and not even get his party's nomination, and I think you're going to see a hunger out there. And what's interesting to me, Ari, is you see more Republicans. They're careful about it, but starting to take issue with him. But once this election's over and the presidential election begins the day after the midterms, I think you're going to see some of the Republican field be a little tougher with him because this is their one shot to be president. And Trump or no Trump, they know it goes through him.
Yeah, as you say, the motives of someone like DeSantis or Cruz, who was plenty negative on Trump when he was running against him, as the incentives change, you may see that in a harsher, stronger way because they really didn't find a way to deal with him when he was ascendant within the party. As for the mention of potential fringe candidates, this brings us back to the political culture. You can't make a joke on SNL unless there's widespread understanding of the punchline. And here was sort of their rendering of MTG and how fringe some of these right-wing Republicans are. Take a look.
Hi, I'm Marjorie Taylor Greene. I've been saying aggressively to all my Jewish and Muslim colleagues, Happy Easter. So happy Easter and God bless Russia. I mean America. But kind of both, right?
It's funny enough, Che, for people to recognize the habit, and yet what's serious there is casual bigotry, casual anti-Semitism, casual Putin support at a time that there are mass graves abroad, right, is not where the Republican Party historically has wanted to be. Che.
Yeah, but that's also why Trump is still so powerful in the GOP. You have a Trumpist base in the GOP, and Trump understands that nature abhors a vacuum. You can't replace something with nothing. Trump is, whatever you think of it, he is offering voters something, GOP-based voters something. The GOP has offered them nothing in return. Nobody has even tried to offer an alternative that's non-Trumpist to the GOP base. The only one who kind of has been Ron DeSantis, and his solution has to be even Trumpier than Trump.
Trumpier than Trump, and yet he would argue, I think behind closed doors, that it's less chaos, that Wall Street and those power bases can deal with a DeSantis as a Harvard grad and a former Marine, I believe, former military, in a way that's different than Donald Trump, but he can still do all the other, what's the word, political crap. Right. I suspect we'll be hearing from both of you again as the midterms approach. I appreciate you joining us, David Plouffe and Che Komanduri.
Thanks, Ari.
Thank you, Ari.
Thank you both.